My name is Bar Ifrach, and I'm a Senior Director of Applied Science and Head of Marketplace at Uber Freight. I got my undergrad in economics in Tel Aviv University in Israel, and I had a real kind of infatuation with the academic side of it in my last year in college. And during that year, I decided that I wanted to get a PhD in the field. And all of my professors at Tel Aviv University had their PhDs from American schools. So I thought, well, that must be the right way to do it. And I was lucky enough to be admitted at Columbia Business School. I'm both heading the data science and applied science team, but also heading the marketplace team. The marketplace team is essentially responsible for connecting the demand and the supply, so shippers and truckers or carriers. And we primarily work on pricing. So we set all the algorithmic pricing in the business that price each and every load that we touch. And that, of course, has a really strong implication on our business outcomes, thinking through how we build our unit economics, how we flex between margin and growth. And that's been a really interesting experience, owning both kind of a concrete business outcome as well as the data science function. Something we're using data now to really understand better is thinking through the entire logistics business cycle. I'm sure that everyone got their chance to read about how supply chain during COVID has been disrupted and how rates of shipments and costs of shipments have skyrocketed. So we saw a market that was trending up in terms of costs, a lot of constraints on supply. And now we are seeing some of those bottlenecks being released and rates coming down. One of the things that we're doing on my team is understanding really how demand and supply in the market interplays to determine the equilibrium prices across the US primarily. So we're looking at a lot of interesting models that harvest external data but also internal data to determine what is essentially the supply curve, namely what level of prices in the market will see more trucks coming in, more carriers coming into the market versus leaving the market and therefore pushing the prices down or up. What would be that equilibrium point? And it's always a moving target because both supply changes, underlying costs of running a truck change, as well as the demand driven by consumption, driven by inflation at this time as well, keeps on varying. So we are very interested in that problem and spending a lot of resources to better understand it. If you're thinking about how those tech companies operate, it's really the kind of core unit of tech execution is what we call the cross-functional team. So already by the name, you can understand that you'll have very different skill sets there. You don't typically have majority of the group being engineers. Then you have data scientists or data analysts or applied scientists, depending on the problem, and designers, and then typically a product manager. Of course, different proportions can change depending on what you're working on. And within that group, data plays a big role, but everyone has somewhat of a different perspective and a different kind of language in how they think about the problem. I'd say the kind of important part for MBAs going into that environment, and typically they go into the product manager role, is to really be able to adapt their language to those different skill sets and be able to bring the most value out of each one and out of the team as a whole. So oftentimes what I see with product managers who kind of build their experience and become really fantastic is that they're able to actually get the team to work well together. And that's by, indeed elevating those skill sets, creating an open environment where the best ideas can float and, have the the most impact, because you don't know if that will come from the engineer or will come from the designer or will come from the data scientist or will come from you. Creating that space is really important.